Welcome to this week's Vanderbilt football pregame show on the Believe Podcast Network. I'm your host, Billy Derrick. This week, it's number 10 Vanderbilt, favored by 2.5 at home against number 15 Missouri. The over-under set right now at 53.5. And again, we are brought to you by FanDuel. Head on over to FanDuel if you want to make a bet on that game. Again, Vanderbilt favored by 2.5. If you like that over-under number, you think it's going to go under, which that would be my recommendation for you to take that under, sprinkle a little bit of money there over on FanDuel, 53.5 on the over-under. And again, if you want to make some more bets on other SEC games and games across the country, head on over to FanDuel. Also, before we get to anything else on this week's pregame show, because we got a lot to get to, I want to tell you about our presenting sponsor for all of our football coverage this year, Bulovas Wealth Management of Raymond James. If there's one thing we all share, it's that our lives are all unique. At Raymond James, they believe that's worth celebrating because financial planning isn't just about numbers and figures. It's about creating the life that you envision. So whether you're building a future or preparing for retirement, Joe Bulovas, Raymond James financial advisor, former Vanderbilt kicker, can guide you each step of the way, all while following a plan that's uniquely yours. That's life well planned. To learn more, call Joe at 615-645-6742 or log on to his website, raymondjames.com/Bulovas Wealth Management. Also, basketball season just around the corner. They've had some scrimmages. Obviously, the secret scrimmage per se, the secret scrimmages are no longer a thing. Fans were invited to come out to Memorial Gym last week as the Commodores took down Virginia. And then actually, just last night as I record this, took down UAB down in Birmingham. So a couple of scrimmages underway for the Commodores, and all of our basketball coverage brought to you by the Wash House. Are you dreading laundry day? Is it stealing time to do the things that you truly enjoy? Well, let the laundry professionals at the Wash House take care of that for you. With 2 convenient locations in the greater Nashville area, just drop off your dirty laundry and their professional attendants can give you back the one thing you can never have enough of, your time. Within 24 hours, you can pick up your freshly folded, clean, and nicely laundered laundry, ready to be put away. Log on to washhouseclean.com or stop in today and get your time back. All right, this podcast, obviously, brought to you by FanDuel, Bulovas Wealth Management. We'll get to a few of our other sponsors a little bit later. But Saturday, 2:30 Central Time here in Nashville at First Bank Stadium. It's number 10 Vanderbilt, 6-1, 2-1 in the SEC, favored to beat Missouri by about 2.5 points right now. We'll see if that line shifts at all. The Tigers also 6-1 and 2-1 in the SEC. You can watch it on ABC. Bob Wischusen, Lewis Riddick, and Chris Budden on the call. Another great TV crew. That's the thing about these games this season when you're winning. Obviously, Vandy's been on ABC a couple of times, and of course, SEC Network with Tom Hart, Cole Kubelik, but another great play-by-play voice and Bob Wischusen on the call for the Commodores. If you're not able to watch the game, of course, you can listen to it there on 102.5 The Game. Commodores are a top 10 team for the first time since 1947 and just the 5th time in program history. It's the 6th straight appearance in the AP poll this season. It's the first time in program history the Commodores have been ranked for more than 4 weeks in a single season. And of course, it's what everybody's talking about, College Game Day back in Nashville for the first time since 2008 and just the 2nd time ever. They'll be broadcasting live from Wyatt Lawn. And that is about a 12-15-minute walk from the stadium. So make sure you give yourself plenty of time. Game day starts at 8 a.m. local time. So I know students typically start rolling in around 5:30 or 6 a.m. So make sure you give yourself some time in the morning to get over there and then get back to the tailgate lots before the game. The timing works out perfectly with game day wrapping up around 11 and then the game kicking off at 2:30. But again, over there on Wyatt Lawn, it's where the game day crew will be. You also have a couple of performances from Kenny Chesney and Dirks Bentley. Nate Bargatze will be the guest picker. So it's going to be a scene in Nashville this Saturday. And of course, game day with them being back and broadcasting from out at Wyatt Lawn, going to have a huge crowd. This is Vandy's 2nd straight sellout and 4th of the season as 35,000 fans and maybe more, could be standing room only, will pack First Bank Stadium for the Top 15 showdown. You've also got the Pat McAfee show being broadcasted on Friday this morning as I record this live. Everyone's talking about the Commodores right now. And because of all that, Clark Lee discussed how he's seen his team handle all the extra attention earlier this week. Take a listen.
It's. I think I may have said this on Tuesday, but we've wanted this. This is what we've aimed for. Not necessarily the attention, but the success. And so we can't want for something and not know how to handle ourselves through it. And again, it goes back to this idea of, the attention for this game is great, but the light fades really quickly when you don't play the right way. And not that the point is to keep the light on us, but we know that the light follows winners. And so what we need to do is engage in a winning process. That's what we've done. I have not had, first of all, game day is an incredible operation, but they're also pros. And so it's not like they're trying to, distract in our process. I mean, they've been fantastic to work with. Obviously, there will be a little more responsibility as the week goes on, as we get to Saturday, and much of that falls on my shoulders, which that's my job. But again, this is what it takes to build a winning program, to sustain a winning program. We have to embrace the attention, and we cannot allow that to rob us from our process. And I've been really impressed with how our players have handled themselves.
That's Vanderbilt head coach Clark Lee. Obviously, the challenge this week is making sure your team is laser focused. Clark feels like they've done that. And obviously, we'll see what we get from the Commodores on Saturday. Speaking of Saturday, these two teams really haven't met a whole lot, especially before Missouri was in the SEC. They first met all the way back in 1895 and played just 4 times before the Tigers joined the conference back in 2012. Commodores have lost 5 straight games in the series, so it's been a tough go of it for the Doors against the Tigers. But you go back to 2019, Riley Neal came off the bench and threw a 21-yard touchdown to Cam Johnson with 9 minutes left, and Vandy upset number 22 Missouri for their most recent win in the series. So interesting series. Obviously, these two teams have played some close games, especially under Clark Lee. Talk about last year's game. Brock Taylor misses the field goal, and obviously Vanderbilt goes down. But Brock will have some opportunities, I guarantee you, on Saturday to redeem himself a little bit. But obviously last week, the Commodores coming off a win over LSU, 31-24. They earned their 3rd win over a top 25 team under Clark Lee with the win. It was their 2nd win over a top 10 team in the last 2 seasons. Of course, Alabama ranked number 1. Last year, Pavia threw for 160 yards and a touchdown, ran for 86 yards and 2 more scores to improve to 6-1 for the first time in 75 years for the Doors. Pavia celebrated his 3rd touchdown, a 21-yard run, by sticking his left arm out in the Heisman pose. Clark Lee, after the game, said he didn't see it, but said he sees Pavia as the best player in college football. He said you can't watch him play and not realize what a game changer he is. There are a lot of good players, but there's only a handful to me that can take a game over, and he's one of those. So Pavia and this Vanderbilt offense trying to keep things rolling on Saturday, and a lot of that it has to do with the running backs and the receivers, but these tight ends have been phenomenal. Obviously, we know about Eli Stowers. He'll be playing on Sundays starting next season. Cole Spence had his breakout performance on Saturday, not to mention Gabe Fisher and Manny Adebayo. But this tight end here, Cole Spence, had a career day in the win over the Tigers. 5 catches, 56 yards, and a touchdown. His 5 catches and 56 yards were both career highs, while the touchdown was his 1st of the season and 3rd of his career. Spence led the Commodores in receptions and yardage against the Tigers. 27 of his 56 yards came after the catch. And, man, was he wide open a few of those times. Obviously had the touchdown on the rollout there from Pavia. And speaking of Cole Spence, he is this week's player feature. Here's the interview with Cole Spence. Cole, I want to start with last week. I know you talked about it after the game. Didn't have a drop there and felt like you were laser focused in that game. What do you think allowed you to have the success you had and like we talked about, be pretty wide open on a lot of those?
First of all, I think it starts off with my faith in terms of when I put my faith in God, my identity in Him, there's no pressure in those big moments. And then I think it just comes down to Coach Beck dialing up amazing plays and things where like it draws me up where defenses think I'm normally blocking and I go out into a route. And then just seeing the process, Diego puts great balls out there and I just go get them. So
there's a couple of plays that have kind of gone viral, obviously with Cade McConnell, and then you had a couple of blocks yourself. Going into that game, was obviously there's a mindset of being physical week in, week out, but it felt like you guys had sort of an extra something there going into LSU.
I actually don't know if that's true. I think we try to bring the same stuff every day. I think maybe because there was more of a spotlight, people kind of paid more attention to it. But, I mean, you put on the tape of this offensive line, dudes are running their feet, killing people every single game. So it's nothing new for us.
Yeah, you knew this was in them throughout this offensive line from day one?
Yeah, I mean, just from fall camp, I was like, oh, gosh, we got some guys, and they all work so hard. I think Coach Klinakis does an amazing job. So.
All right, this week, another tough SEC challenge. What have you seen in film with Missouri, a defense that has some pretty dynamic edge rushers?
Yeah, their edge rushers are definitely very good players. And so as a job as an offensive line unit and myself, our job is to, do what we do and to handle them. I think they're sound on the defense all across the board. But at the end of the day, we just got to do what we do. So that's what we're going to do.
At the end of the day, also, you guys are going to be locked into the game in the white lines, but obviously College game day on campus. As a kid, I know you watched it growing up. What's that going to be like turning it on and knowing that it's on your campus?
It's going to be really cool. I actually, hopefully we'll get the chance to turn it on maybe a little bit before the game, but honestly, before the game, we're kind of locked in. But it's been really fun just hearing people on the campus talk about it, like, oh man, I'm going to camp out for the game and I'm going to go practice kick and all that kind of stuff. It's like, that's so cool. So I'm just so glad that we can bring that kind of environment to Vanderbilt where, in the past it hasn't really been a thing. I'm just so glad that everyone can kind of share in the joy that we feel when we play the game.
Yeah, you mentioned that environment, that football culture, right? And I feel like Clark has been working to build that, and it's part of events like this that make the campus involved and the students involved. Have you seen that start to grow where the student body is, involved with the football program?
Definitely. I think, first of all, you just see it in the attendance in the games. I mean, it used to be a student section. It was like a little section at the bottom of the stadium, and now you get to fill it up. So the more we win, the more people will come, and I think the more we win, we'll build more traditions and all that kind of thing. So I'm really excited to see where we can go from here.
All right, last thing, what's the biggest key offensively for you guys? And we'll talk more defensively in the podcast, but with you guys offensively, what are a couple keys that you guys have to hone in on?
Run to win. We're not dialing up anything special at this point. We're an offense who knows who we are. So it's just that execution, They like pressures up the middle and all that kind of stuff. So just having our eyes up and communicating that. And when we communicate that, whether it's Diego checks the play or you just know the D-line's going to slant with whatever pressures and you're just ready to pick it up. So just playing with our eyes up and doing what we need to do.
And throw to score, right?
Yeah, run to win, throw to score. That's what we do.
Cole, appreciate it. Good luck on Saturday.
Thank you.
That's Vanderbilt tight end Cole Spence. I'm sure Missouri and that Corey Batoon defense will be keyed on Spence and hoping he doesn't slip out of that line this week. But, you've also got Eli Stowers, so you can't lock in too much on Cole Spence. This could be the best tight end duo in the country, not to mention a guy like Junior Sherrill on the outside, Trey Richardson. This offense is humming right now. So we got a Vanderbilt offense is playing really well. Missouri so far this season playing well also. They started out 5-0. They also started with 5 straight home games, and actually 6 straight home games to be exact. So 6 of their first 7 games at home. They opened the season with a win over Central Arkansas, and then they beat Kansas in a high-scoring game. They got down early in that game and then came back to beat Jalen Daniels and the Jayhawks, beat Louisiana, and then obviously beat South Carolina at home as well, beat UMass 42-6. And then they suffered their first loss against Alabama a few weeks back. This was actually after Alabama beat Vanderbilt. So we got a good look at that Missouri team against an Alabama team. We know how good they are. The Tide beat the Tigers 27-24. And then obviously last week was an ugly one. Missouri held on late to beat Auburn 23-17. Bo Pribula's touchdown run in double overtime lifted the Tigers to a win. Missouri may have delivered the knockout blow to Hugh Freeze. This was an ugly game. Ahmad Hardy ran for just 58 yards and 2 touchdowns for the Tigers as they bounced back from that home loss to Alabama. Pribula threw for 252 yards, 2 interceptions, and ran for 28 more yards. So they limited him on the ground, Auburn did, and he did make a couple of those brutal mistakes for Missouri as well. So keep an eye on that on Saturday if Vanderbilt can make him uncomfortable. Ahmad Hardy had a short run with about 5 minutes to go in the game. That tied it at 17. This was Missouri's first road test of the season, and they passed it. Obviously not with flying colors, but this Tiger defense allowed an opening drive touchdown and then held Auburn to 10 points the rest of the night. So this is a great performance by that Tiger defense. Going back to the offensive side, though, for Missouri, players to watch, obviously this is a balanced Missouri offense with the run and the pass, and they're led by Bo Pribula. OC Kirby Moore has done a really good job navigating some of these waters under Coach Drinkwitz. The Tigers averaging 487 yards per game. That's fourth in the conference. 245 rushing yards per game. That's a big number. That leads the league by a pretty wide margin. Obviously, that helps when you have Ahmad Hardy and Jamal Roberts. 242 passing yards per game, so not a crazy number, but still solid. 39 points per game. That's third in the league, right behind Vandy and Tennessee. Bo Pribula is an interesting case study. Obviously, comes over from Penn State, left at an inopportune time for the Nittany Lions. Of course, Drew Aller never went down in the playoff, but for Pribula to leave before the playoff even started, obviously sort of tells you what times we're in here in college football in today's day and age. But he's played solid. I don't want to say, obviously he hasn't been perfect. It's very rare for a quarterback to look like he's perfect outside of maybe Ty Simpson right now. But Bo Pribula averaging he's thrown for 1,617 yards. That's sixth in the SEC. 11 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. That's the second most out of SEC quarterbacks. So the turnovers have hurt Bo Pribula. They hurt him against Alabama. And the sacks have hurt him as well. He's been sacked 17 times. Now, he runs a lot, so that could be a part of it. But that sack number is one of the highest in the league as well. So sacks, interceptions, maybe a fumble, turnovers will be key in this game to see if the Commodores can force them on this Tiger offense. They are led, though, by Ahmad Hardy, 840 yards on the season, on the ground, 11 touchdowns, 6 yards per carry. It's another solid number for Hardy. And then you've also got Jamal Roberts to complement him, 406 yards and 3 touchdowns for Roberts. A lot of receivers on this Tiger offense that, I don't think they've done as much through the air maybe as you would have liked, but you've got Kevin Coleman, 449 yards through the air, 1 touchdown. Marquise Johnson, 322 yards, 2 touchdowns. You've also got a solid tight end in Brett Norfleet, who's got 5 touchdowns this season. But keep an eye on Josh Manning and Donovan Olubade. Olubade played really well last week against Auburn. So that's what to watch for on the Missouri offense. Let's go to this Corey Batoon defense. They're giving up just 243 yards per game. That's second in the SEC. They're also only giving up just 84 rushing yards per game. It's going to be a challenge for Vandy's run game against guys like Damon Wilson and Zion Young up front. They're also led by linebacker Jeremiah Trotter. Trotter's got 44 tackles and 1 sack on the season. You've also got a great safety in the secondary, Jalen Catalon, transferred from Arkansas. He's got 27 tackles on the season. But the 2 players to watch are in that front 7 for the Tigers. Damon Wilson in the middle, Zion Young off the edge on the outside. These 2 guys have combined for 10.5 sacks, and I know the competition has not been great. You've got teams like Central Arkansas and Louisiana and UMass. And look, South Carolina has struggled this year, especially on the offensive line. Kansas is a Big 12 team that's kind of middle of the pack. And then obviously Auburn last week. This is a defense that, how much have they been challenged? Obviously, they faced Alabama. That Auburn offense is not really anything to write home about. So I'm interested to see what kind of success this Vanderbilt offense can have against the Corey Batoon-led defense. All right, let's get to the injury report before we roll this thing on for Missouri. Their kicker, Blake Craig, has been out for the season. He was hurt, I want to say, in that season opener against Central Arkansas, so that they are rolling with a backup kicker. They've been rolling with Robert Meyer for the last several weeks, obviously throughout the entire season. So they have struggled there at kicker, though, and that's the reason why their starter went down in that first game of the season. And then, of course, quarterback Sam Horn was also hurt in that game. So that was a tough blow for the Tigers in terms of health. You lose your starting kicker and you lose your backup quarterback. And Horn, I think, was going to be more than just a backup quarterback this year. I think if you're Drinkwitz, you would have liked to have him, obviously, as an older, experienced guy, but that's the case for the Tigers. For the Commodores, same as usual. Obviously, Issa Wataha is officially out, and Clarkley did confirm on Tuesday of this week that he will go ahead with surgery and have a medical red shirt. So that's the case there with Issa Wataha. Unfortunate, but that's what we're dealing with. And then Drew Dickey is out. Obviously, he dealt with, unfortunately, a cardiac issue a couple of weeks back. So prayers for Drew and his family that he's able to get back healthy. Chase Gillespie's out, Vanzell Hinton as well, Jamison Curtis, and Nikhil Jefferson, just like last week. So really just Curtis. He's been out the last few weeks, played a little bit of special teams. Commodores will be fine without him, though. All right, before we get into the interview portion, I want to tell you about a couple more of our sponsors. Our guest line, we've got Rick Neuheisel from CBS Sports coming up, obviously from Sirius XM as well. Does a morning radio show there with Chris Childers. He's going to join us here in just a moment. Also, as usual, we go behind enemy lines, and we're joined by Gabe DeArmond from PowerMizzou.com. So we preview the Tigers from the Mizzou perspective on this matchup. So we talk about that. Also, Lelan Statom, another weather report with him. We'll do him before obviously those second guests. But our guest line brought to you by John Levin, good friend of the show, Wobble Bond Dickinson. Thanks Vanderbilt University's athletes, student athletes, for their dedication, effort, and hard work. Our guest line also brought to you by Yeaman Packaging Systems, leaders in end-of-line packaging automation. Also, Sutherland and Belk. No a mailbag or chat room today, but still want to tell you about them. Family-owned injury law firm. They sponsor the chat room and, of course, the mailbag as well. If you or a loved one has been hurt or in an accident, give Taylor or Russell a call at 615-846-6200 to learn about your rights and whether they can help. All right. We've got Rick Neuheisel. We've got Gabe DeArmond. And we've got a weather report with Lelan Statom. And we're going to kick it off with this week's weather report from NewsChannel 5's Lelan Statom. Lelan Statom back with us again for another weather report ahead of Vanderbilt and Missouri on Saturday, 2:30 kickoff. But Leland got College Game Day in town on ESPN, so you know some students and fans will be rolling in there early. And then we've got the kickoff temperature as well. Could be a little bit cooler on Saturday.
Now for game time itself, I think it's going to be a great game time as we head into the afternoon. But for folks who are getting up early, especially for game day, Billy, we're talking temperatures in the 40s as folks are starting to get out there right around 5:30 or 6 o'clock.
And then as we roll through to kickoff, what are we looking like around 2:30? I know last week we had some rain chances after the game, but what is it looking like right around kickoff?
All right, so around kickoff, we're going to see a partly to a mostly cloudy sky. Let's call it a mix of sun and clouds. And as we head toward the 2 to 3 o'clock hour, those temperatures are going to be in the mid to lower 70s. Now, like last week, clouds may start to thicken up during the actual game. I think the game is dry and the rain chances move in again, like last week, Saturday night into Sunday. But all in all, whether it's out there very early for game day with temperatures in the 40s when they get going, and by the time game day wraps up, you're looking at maybe a temperature right around 59 to 60. Then at kickoff, mid to low 70s. And then as the game is wrapping up, those temperatures are going to be right around 71, 72. Overall, Billy, not much with the winds this time out. Winds are going to come in out of the east-southeast at around 5 to 10 miles per hour. But overall, despite clouds on the increase during the day, it should be a great game day over on West End.
Keeping this week's pregame show rolling with a visit from Rick Neuheisel from CBS Sports, also co-host of The Full Ride on Sirius XM alongside Chris Childers. And Rick, appreciate the time. It should be a fun weekend in Nashville for Vandy and Missouri. But looking forward to getting into Clarkley and the success of this program.
Well, what a weekend for Nashville. What a weekend for Vanderbilt fans. What a season for Vanderbilt fans. And I could not be happier for one of the great guys and hardworking coaches in the business in Clarkley. Had a great experience with him on my staff.
Yeah, what was that like? And I know you've talked, and the guys on the CBS desk, were making some jokes about it. It's like, oh, did he really coach under you? But what did you see from Clark's development there at UCLA, and then kind of tracking his coaching career up through the ranks, and kind of going back to those UCLA days?
So it's amazing when you get a job, as I got the job at UCLA back in 2008. I kind of inherit a bunch of guys, right? There's a bunch of guys that were on Carl Durrell's staff that were kind of hanging around, full-time staffers who were looking for other work and wanted a chance to talk to me about a chance to stay on staff. And then there were a bunch of kids, Clark and that company, that were kind of around, whatever their title is, quality control, graduate assistants, what have you. They're minions, and they're all trying to get a chance to coach. This is the life that they dream of, and they look forward to it. And Clark was one of those guys. And it's hard to, in the moments that you get the job, especially given the timing of what happens in the NFL, you get a job, you're kind of working on the draft, but you don't have to have the draft happen literally a month later. You got some time. In college, you've got that signing date. At least back in 2008, there was a signing date. There was no transfer portal. So you had to get to work on recruiting. So doing your due diligence and making the decisions on coaches is hard. And yet, because I'd had a little experience, I knew that I had to take my time. And in taking my time, I got to know Clark Lea. And he was just so impressive as a young person, so impressive as a guy that kind of knew where he wanted to go. He didn't have much in the way of experience. I think he was coaching at a high school close by. Harvard Westlake, I think, comes to mind. And he just was really bright. I was impressed with the Vanderbilt education. And I said, I'd like you to come and hang out with us here. And so he was excited about it. I don't remember if it was a quality control job, but it was very quickly after that, maybe after year one, that I realized this was a full-time guy. This was a guy that I wanted on my staff. He was going to grow fast in the business and be very, very valuable. And by the end of our time at UCLA, even though I didn't make it official, he was coordinating the defense. I decided that the coordinator didn't need to be fired in the middle of the season for sake of his own career, even though I said it'll be easier for you to get the next job with a job, but I'm moving away from you as the play caller on defense, and I'm going to give it to this kid by the name of Clark Lea. And he did fabulously, and we got ourselves into a bowl game that year, and I knew he was on a fast track.
And so kind of fast forward to when he gets to Vanderbilt, obviously he knew the challenges that existed. Everybody did. Of course, the program was, in shambles. I mean, we could admit that. Clark has admitted that, and kind of stripping some of the mental hurdles that existed in a lot of those players. And they had a jump there in year two, Rick, if you remember, but then year three fall to 2-10. And then you see what happened last year. Looking at the build, they knew there would be challenges, but the way this program got to where they're at right now, I don't think Coach Lea or Barton Simmons or anybody involved would have had it gone that way, but they had to get there some way, somehow.
Yeah, I told Clark when he got the job that he was going into the deep end of the pool because of the SEC and all the great programs in the SEC that were not only further ahead in terms of building a program, but we're going to be capable of recruiting a wider berth of athletes. And with that being said, you had to have a unique way of playing offense, which limited the amount of exposures you had on defense. And we had kind of had a similar circumstance at UCLA during time Clark was there, and went to the pistol. So I told him before he ever got started, the pistol was where you needed to be. But like most young coaches, they have ideas as to how they're going to do things. He has a great acumen for football and knows what's hard to defend. So, and he had friends. We all, the hardest part about getting your first head coaching job is saying no to friends. And I'm not sure that he did. And so he hired a bunch of guys that he kind of knew and were friendly. And he realized that that wasn't necessarily the way to go. And firing friends is way harder than you can imagine. So it took a while for him to find it. But as fate would have it, he watched that Auburn lost to New Mexico State in a year where things were kind of crumbling around him. Yep. And people were transferring out because the transfer portal had become vogue. And he was sitting there going, I'm in the skids here. And he went and watched that film, realizing that that was the offense that we basically incorporated at UCLA back in 2009 after a dismal 2008. And therein were the answers, whether it was Diego Pavia, whether it was Jerry Kill or Tim Beck or Eli Stowers, it was all of them. And he got them all lock, stock, and barrel to come to Vanderbilt. And it was a genius move, not only because the offense got fixed in a hurry, but he then put himself back on defense. And in those two moves, this new version of Vanderbilt has been born. And I will give another huge shout out to those in the administration, whether it goes all the way up to the president's office or it was the athletic director, but whoever decided we're going to help you and subsidize our expectations by, number one, financing them, and number two, allowing kids into school so that they could be part of the front porch of a university that's so proud and deservedly so for their academics, but also now can be proud of the way they're playing football and representing themselves in an SEC environment, which is so competitive. It's been a wonderful thing to watch.
You mentioned that pistol, and not to mention former Nevada offensive line and I want to say OC at the time under Colin Kaepernick, Chris Klanakis, who's the offensive line coach.
Well, there you go. See, yeah. So I hired Jim Mastro years ago to come off the Nevada staff, and Klanakis was there. But I hired Mastro to come and teach us the pistol at UCLA, and all of a sudden we're beating Texas 34-12, and Texas was in the top 10. We had an advantage, and I still think there's way more you can do with it. But it is fun each week to see Diego do the thing and get Vanderbilt turned, I guess is how he said it, right?
Yeah, just be a maestro, a magician back there, and I want to dig into their offense. I know you've watched a good bit of them, and they've changed a little bit from last year. Not a ton.
You can change it 1,000 different ways. It's just dressing it up. And making so you're having to figure out where. But the key to the operation, at least when I was running it, was it's veer offense. If you go back to study offense in college football, Bill Yeoman had the Houston veer, right? And the Houston veer started under center. And basically, veer was that the offensive tackle and offensive guard would block down and leave anybody who was outside of that offensive tackle for the quarterback to read. And as the ball went into the belly of the fullback, that guy would either come down to take the back, and if that were the case, the quarterback would pull. It's ride and decide, and now you pull around, and if there's an extra defender, now you'd have a pitch man, okay? Kind of triple option football, the veer. This pistol version of the veer happens at 4.5 yards deep. So what's the difference? The difference is now somebody that lines up on the right side of your formation. He can even be on the line of scrimmage. We actually did it on the line of scrimmage, but usually somebody on the wing who lines up and has to be accommodated for by the defense in terms of how, deploying their numbers. If 11 guys on each side, if I've got 6 to one side of the ball and 5 to the other, they need to have 6 as well, because they've got to be gap conscious and make sure that they're, sound. But if I line up with 6 guys on the side of the ball or 7 to one side of the ball, and all of a sudden, as the ball's snapped to the quarterback and that guy who's lined up to the right now is moved to the left before you know where the ball's going, because I'm putting the ball in the belly of a back who started at 7.5 yards deep. Now, all of a sudden, you're sitting there having to wait, and I've got you a little numbers advantage. And the sleight of hand that Diego has, he's a 24-year-old kid. He's been doing this now for 3 or 4 years. So this is all of a sudden very advantageous, and you keep messing up with the formations and how you get there. But at the end of the day, it's sleight of hand, and it's beautiful.
And you've also got the tight ends that they will slip out of the backfield. You saw that with Cole Spence on Saturday, Eli Stowers, and a lot of times Stowers is bracketed.
Versatile.
But you forget about Cole Spence.
That's exactly right. And you can have them be fullbacks. This goes back to Jim Harbaugh, another lesson we learned in the old Pac-10, which became the Pac-12 while Clark was there. Watching Jim Harbaugh go and recruit all the great tight ends. Levine Toilolo, I think it was Zach Ertz, Kobe Fleener. Those three guys played a bunch of 13 personnel, which was 1 back and 3 tight ends, and you had to accommodate all those gaps and then all the different pass patterns that came out, and Andrew Luck would shred you. So you can recruit tight ends at Vanderbilt. You may not be able to recruit, the 4 horsemen, those great receivers that they had at Alabama, right? When they had Jerry Jeudy and Henry Ruggs and Devontae Smith and Jalen Waddle, right? You might not be able to get those guys at Vanderbilt, but you don't need them if you got 3 beautiful tight ends that all want a great education and can do all the different things. You can find a way. And the other key, and this has been, if you go back and look at the game where they broke open the whole mold of Vanderbilt football by beating Alabama in Nashville a year ago, look at the time of possession. It was over 40 minutes. And that is the key, because now you limit the exposures of your defense as well. You are playing complementary football, and it's a beautiful thing in the Music City.
Yeah, and you put pressure on that other offense. You saw that with LSU. One more on this offense. Obviously, it's led by Diego Pavia. I saw a quote from an NFL draft analyst actually earlier today. He said a lot of NFL scouts are beginning to take interest in Pavia, who has shown strides of development as a passer. We'll see what his career at the next level looks like, Rick. But what separates him? You got into it a little bit in the magician, the Houdini acts, and obviously his experience. But what are some other things that you think separates him?
We can teach all that. What you can't teach is his persona. He is got grit. He is the personification of the little train that could, right? As Diego goes, the team goes. He has given them an edge. That whole deal, talking to Barton Simmons, who was a childhood buddy of Clark's, and they dreamed about this, right? And when Clark gets the head job, Barton comes off of the 24/7 beat and comes in and becomes the GM. As they dreamed this is what they wanted, this edge that came from Las Cruces, New Mexico, and created this. We ain't turning down a fight with anybody. We can may not be using exactly perfect English. It might not get the A in the English class there at Vanderbilt, but you know what? They like this new language. They're speaking at the university, and I think they'll go with it, given the fact that the results are undeniable. This has been really fun. He gives them an edge, and when you meet him, he's as charming as anybody you'll ever meet. So there's some rare personality traits with this kid Pavia.
All right, before I let you go, I want to get your take on this matchup. These are two really similar teams. The defenses are solid. Prebula and Hardy and make a tough tandem on that side of the ball for them. What are you looking for that could potentially decide this game on Saturday, in a game that, if Vanderbilt wins, could be a top 5 team and they stay on track for the playoff?
It's not fair that this game would be considered an elimination game, given that both teams come in with only 1 loss, and they're in a very, very difficult conference in the SEC. But because of their brands, a lot of people want it to be that way. Only one of these brands can survive.
Right.
So if we deal with it in that context, I think what has to happen is you can't turn it over. The 2 quarterbacks are both 70% passers at their best. They're both able to do things with their legs. I see that Prebula now is up to 7 interceptions. That, to me, is a Achilles heel in the game like this. And I love that Clark has got a chance to be on the defensive side of the ball, having given the keys to the car to that group from Las Cruces. I just think that Clark Lee is going to dial something up in front of a home crowd, a legitimate home crowd there on West End Boulevard. I just see this as a Vandy spot. I'd be shocked if Vanderbilt doesn't win.
There it is, Rick. Appreciate the time, and man, I don't know if there's a better person that when it comes to Coach Lee and tracking his career and keeping up with them and the relationship you had.
I made all the calls to find the kid a job when I got canned. I had to. I got him in there with Dave Clausen, I guess. Dave Clausen was at Bowling Green, and I called Dave. I said, I got a superstar with you. And then he lassoed up with Mike Elko there, and they all went to Wake Forest. And then at Wake Forest, they had 3 games, I think, where they held the opponent to less than 10 points and still lost. And then they 2 of them went to Notre Dame. Elko gets the big deal to Texas A&M to be the first $2 million assistant coach, and Clark got the coordinator job. I launched this kid. I launched him.
Credit to Coach Neuheisel for Clark Lee's success.
I'm taking credit whether he remembers my name or not. I'm taking credit.
We'll give you credit for that at least. Rick, thank you for the time, and good luck with your coverage, and enjoy the games this weekend.
Go Doors. See you now. Anchor down, I guess they say.
Wrapping up this week's pregame show with a visit from Gabe DeArmond, publisher over at PowerMizzou.com. Been doing it a long time. Basically, I kind of think of you, Gabe, as like the Chris Lee equivalent of Power Mizzou and Vandy247. You guys have, and obviously at Rebel Grove with Neil McCready as well. You guys have been doing it a long time.
I know I predate Neil. I think Chris and I I think we're pretty close to about the same time.
Yeah.
I met him a long time ago.
I'm sure you and Chris haven't dealt with a game between Vanderbilt and Missouri quite like this one. I don't think anybody has, whether it's basketball, obviously not baseball, but this top 15 matchup, college game day coming to Nashville. And Drinkwitz, of course, joked that, it doesn't really affect us. It doesn't feel like they're going to be talking about us a whole lot. So how does it feel kind of from the Missouri perspective with such a big game, but it's not an Alabama or not an LSU?
Well, that's the interesting part of this. And I don't want to pretend like Missouri's in a game like this every year, but Missouri has been in games like this, at times. I mean, they made 2 SEC title games. They were number 1 in the country back in 2007. So there have been games that have felt like this, but this wasn't the one everybody probably had circled before the season. I know you and me started joking like it was like week 3 because Vandy started well and Missouri looked really good in the first 2 weeks. And I was like, they need a Vandy-Mizzou SEC title game. And then like the league will just disband the event. It will cease to exist if that happens. And I think because they play each other, it's very mathematically unlikely that they could both get to Atlanta, but I don't actually think it's impossible.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. I obviously, when you start looking at the matchup, you think about both quarterbacks and, the pressure on both of them. Really, I mean, especially Vanderbilt with Pavia and Prabula obviously felt a little bit of the pressure, obviously, against Alabama. I mean, I think a lot of quarterbacks are against them. But with Bo, how have you seen him grow and develop really from game 1 up to this point? And obviously with some challenges that he's faced, in the first couple games of SEC play.
Yeah, the first 3 games were just kind of like rainbows and unicorns. And I mean, there were people, this is the best quarterback in the SEC. Should he be on Heisman lists? And it was kind of like, hang on, guys. I mean, Kansas isn't awful, but they're not great.
Yeah.
Central Arkansas is awful, and Louisiana is awful. South Carolina was a couple of hiccups, but he won the game. And then UMass that was just light cardio for everybody for a couple quarters. Yeah. But then the Alabama game was a little bit, and I did a thing before the season. And I said, every time Missouri has broken in a new quarterback, they've never won more than 8 games with the first-year starting quarterback.
Wow.
So, be prepared that this kid hasn't done this before. He's basically played one half of meaningful football in his college career. And, the response I got, of course, was, yeah, but this is his 3rd year in college. This isn't a new guy. I'm like, well, there's going to be some bumps in the road. And there were bumps in the road against Alabama for sure. He didn't play very well in that game. But then the Auburn game, he still made some mistakes, but he made some big time plays and really was a big reason they won that game. And I think it probably benefits Missouri greatly that game was played before this one. Because like that was 90,000 at night in a place where they were desperate. And like Vandy's atmosphere, I was watching the LSU game last week, and it is like I told my wife, I said, I don't recognize that place. It looks so different than the last time it was there. Not just the structure, but the fans and the crowd and the atmosphere. It's obviously, so much better than it was. It is probably not quite at 2:30 in the afternoon going to be Jordan-Hare Stadium at night.
No.
So I think it's good for him that he went through that. But it's interesting you mentioned pressure, because I did a thing on our YouTube channel on Tuesday, kind of trying to figure out which team has more pressure on it. And I'm not real sure, because like it's at home. So that's one thing for Vandy, and game day's there. And I think that part of it, they probably feel more. But I'm curious, like, I think there's still a little bit of feeling from outside Nashville that Vandy is a little bit playing with house money here. I assume that is not at all the feeling in the program. They are favored.
Yeah.
They fully expect coming in here to win this game. But then I did kind of the flip side. Missouri, like, they've been in playoff contention the last 2 years and haven't gotten there. Like, at some point, you've got to kick that door down. And I think to kick the door down, they're going to have to win this game.
Yeah, back on the noise part, and you probably, I think people are noticing that because the sound is trapped a lot better in that stadium now with the way they've enclosed the end zone, and I think that has played a role in that. But on the pressure part, I think, and Clark Lee has talked about it, he loves the fact that, who knows when Vanderbilt will get to a point where the perception starts to change, sort of like in Indiana, like because they're Vanderbilt, that may take 2 years, who knows? But I think Clark obviously likes that. And so I think I would agree with you, just because a good point about how the schedule sets up for Missouri. And but for Vanderbilt, like, I think their thought is, if you win this, you can lose another game, but you've got Auburn, you've got Kentucky, you've got Tennessee and Texas. Obviously, if you can split those, this team will be in the playoffs. So it's crazy to sit here and have these like halfway through the season and start to think, okay, where can we lose and where are our wins?
Yeah, well, and you can't really, like, some people are starting to call this like a play-in game, and you can't quite do that because there are 4 weeks left.
Yeah.
But the winner of this game, I mean, you just mentioned Vandy's schedule. Missouri has A&M, but it's at home and they're at Oklahoma. So if they win this game, they really just kind of have to split those and then beat Mississippi State and Arkansas, which have a combined 0 conference wins right now. So the winner of this game, like, I'm not going to say they're in, but the path is pretty clear for the winner of this game to get in.
Yeah. I want to get to Missouri's defense. Clark really gave them a big shout out earlier on Tuesday of this week in his press conference, talking about Carnell and Catalan and some of the safeties, and then obviously the guys up front. Excuse me. We know how good Missouri is up there, but with them defending against a mobile quarterback, how do you see them in this matchup? Because they've faced mobile quarterbacks before this season.
Yeah, they have, but even Drinkwitz said today, yeah, we face mobile quarterbacks, but this guy's the best one. I mean, he called Diego a magician, and like, he's just so different. He's unique. Lenore Sellers, Jalen Daniels, like, they are traditional dual threat quarterbacks, right? They can run and they're long striders and all that. Diego, the only comp I have is, and I'm real careful when I say this because I do not think he is going to be the best quarterback in NFL history. He does not have the arm talent that Patrick Mahomes has. But what NFL coaches said about Patrick Mahomes for his first 4 years in the league was he's better once the play breaks down. Like, yeah. I would rather have him sitting back there in the pocket than chaos theory, and he's just running around. I always compare it. It's before your day, but there was an old cartoon called Family Circus that would have these just tracks of this kid running all over. And that's when Diego scares you the most, is when things do go haywire. So yeah, they've done decent against some mobile quarterbacks, but this is a different test.
With this game from Missouri's perspective, where are some areas you think offensively they can have some success? Because obviously Ahmad Hardy If he can get going, that's a huge to Missouri's advantage. And I think we talked about it on Monday night that Vanderbilt's defense is better than they have been under Clark Lee. They haven't been great really under Clark Lee. They were opportunistic last year, I'd say, but this year they have been able to take over a few possessions with some of their edge rushers. So offensively for Missouri, where do you look at the potential success they could have?
I mean, they have to run the ball, not maybe the way they did in the first 4 weeks of the season. I mean, they went into the Alabama game averaging like 292 yards a game on the ground, so they don't have to do that. But they actually averaged almost 6 yards a carry against Bama. They just never had the ball. But then Auburn shut it down. And if Vandy shuts down this running game and makes Missouri completely win it through the air, that is not something Missouri wants to find out if they can do in this game, I don't think. So they've got to have a moderate amount of success. They ran the ball, I think, 24 times on first down against Auburn and averaged 2.7 yards a play. And that's not going to work. I mean, Hardy's, I'm not going to put a number on it, but like he's got to have a better night. He just had nowhere to go. He leads the country, or at least did. I'm not sure if he still does, in missed tackles. And he had a 3-yard touchdown run that was an unbelievable run to manage to get 3 yards. I mean, he sidestepped a tackler 3 yards in the backfield and dove and stuck the ball across the goal line, but he just had no blocking whatsoever.
Yeah. Well, I want to get to real quick before we wrap it up with the Missouri fan base. And, last year, win it at home, and Missouri the games have been close, but Missouri has, it felt like, always handled Vanderbilt right late in the game. They've been the team that has found a way. For Missouri fans coming into this one, number one, how is the mood? And then number two, how do you think they travel with, because typically we see that invasion of the road teams. How do you think the Tigers travel?
Oh, they will be there. Whatever tickets are available, Missouri fans will take them. I mean, it's a 6-hour drive, and who doesn't want to go to Nashville and spend a weekend down there, right? So I know a lot of people are planning to go to this game. I think, like, you probably hear this every week, and Nick Saban said it on game day. Like, I think people are going through this adjustment of like, this is not the Vandy. Like, I don't think anything you've done against Vandy in the past matters. And I actually think it was the Missouri game last year really that kind of started this thing, because I remember it was, I don't know, week 3 or 4.
I think you're right.
And, Vandy honestly should have won that game. They missed a chip shot field goal, gave up an overtime touchdown pass. I mean, Vandy should have beat them that day, and they didn't. And when they left, like, Missouri dropped like 3 spots in the poll the next day. And Missouri fans were going, and even I was going, guys, I don't think this team's very good. Like, you can't go double OT with Vandy. And then 2 weeks later, we found out, oh, no, hang on, Vandy's good. Never mind. Never mind. Change that, So I really think, and I don't know if Clark would say that or not, but I felt like that was the day that you kind of had to start taking them seriously, even though we didn't realize it at the time. And I think Vandy has Missouri fans' attention, not only because of what they've done against other teams, but that game last year, I mean, one of Barry Odom's teams came there and just got hammered. I mean, they have lost games to Vanderbilt before, so they know that you can't just. They know that Vanderbilt has always probably viewed them as, hey, we don't have a shot in a ton of them, but we feel like we have a shot in this one.
Right.
Fair or not, I think that's been the viewpoint. So I expect both teams to be ready.
Yeah, I'm with you. Like, Vandy, kind of the perception it used to be, not anymore, especially not this year, but Missouri and Kentucky and maybe South Carolina. Like those were the teams that typically you're like, okay, we've got a shot here. But Gabe, I appreciate your time. Looking forward to what happens on Saturday. And I know Cody's making the trip down, but should be really interesting, and I appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah, appreciate it, Billy. Have a good one, man.
All right, that'll do it. Vanderbilt and Missouri, college game day in town, top 15 matchup. Again, the biggest game in Vanderbilt's program history. I think you're going to keep saying that. Can Vanderbilt avoid the external noise and all the hype and all the talk and all the interviews and just focus on the game between the lines. We'll see. 2:30 ABC at First Bank Stadium. Should be fun. Big thanks to all of our guests. Clark Lee's comments from earlier this week. Obviously, our player feature with Cole Spence and weather report with Lelan Statom, Rick Neuheisel from CBS Sports. Great interview there with Rick. And then Gabe DeArmond, my good friend from PowerMizzou.com for previewing the Tigers' perspective of the game. That'll do it. I want to give you a few notes before you leave, though. Don't forget to subscribe to Vandy247.com. Also, subscribe to this YouTube channel. It's very easy to do. Just head on over to our channel on YouTube and click subscribe. That's all you got to do. Like this video as well. Fire away your comments and questions when we go live as well, whether it's with Seabass or Luke Wyatt or Joe Bulovas. We've got all kinds of content coming your way, Vandy247. Also, if you're interested in sponsoring the show, you want to be like FanDuel, you want to be like Joe Bulovas, you want to be like Sutherland and Belk or the Wash House, just email myself or Chris Lee, chrislee70@gmail.com, or myself, Billy Derrick10@gmail.com. Twitter DMs open as well. Thanks for listening. We'll catch you again soon with more episodes of the Vandy 24/7 podcast.